there, sweet friends. Welcome back. I hope you are all well. It is a beautiful sunshiny day here in Southeast Michigan. And if you are all happy that I am not on here complaining about it snowing, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel and let me know in the comments what the weather is where you are watching. So this is going to be a first for me. I have made so many paper bag albums. I've used lunch bags, party bags, gift bags. I've used it all. I've created fun bases with pockets and different ways to include inserts, but never have I ever stitched them together. So this is going to be a first for me, and I'm pretty excited about it. I'm also going to be using up pretty much the end of a collection. That makes me happy as well, to scrap my stash and make room for new papers. So this has got a really cute summer vibe, perfect for the weather. And then I do have this attached in a similar way that you would a traveler's notebook. And so we've got pockets here. There are inserts inside, plenty of places to put your pictures and journaling. And then each one of the ends here also has a tab top insert. And so there is going to be tons of room in here, and this is going to be perfect for any season, any holiday, however you want to use up your stash. You're going to wind up with a very fun and easy to make folio, and this is going to make a perfect gift. So if that sounds good to you, then stick around and we will make it together. So I'm working with the Summer Vibe collection from Echo Park. This is not a new collection. It's just been in my stash, and I've been down to just a few full-size sheets of the pattern paper along with some of the cut aparts, and then of course the sticker sheet. I'm not going to use the stickers for this project, but I do have just enough paper, I think, left to maybe create a card, and so I'm going to hang on to this. But this was a great way to stash bust this collection, and I'm making room in my stash for new paper, so that is always very exciting. When we get to the bags, I've got a standard lunch bag here, and so I just wanted to show you the difference in size for these. The larger bag that I picked up from Amazon is coming in at about 6 inches wide and 12 inches tall. And for my project today, I am choosing that more neutral white color. I think it just goes with more different collections. And also I think the larger size gives me a little more room for bigger pages. And that's fun, especially if you want to include some larger size pictures. The first thing I want to do with this bag is pull this bottom flap so that I can flatten it out this way. And that is going to give me the width that I need for those pages. And so I'm going to bring this to my guillotine cutter, and I'm just going to chop that bottom section right off. Then I'll flip it around, and I want to bring this to the 9.5 inch mark, and I'm keeping it straight and even across the top. That's also going to get rid of that little bit of a raggedy edge there. I want it to be a nice clean cut. So we're done with the cutter for the moment. Let's get that out of the way. So now I've got my scoreboard, and I want to bring this for the top to be at the long side. And so I'm going to score that at 4.5. So exactly right in the middle. Before I remove this though, I do want to go ahead and fold that in half, and it helps to keep everything straight and even across the top and the side. With items that are mass produced, there can be some difference in the measurement, and so this is just one extra step that you can do to keep everything lined up nicely. And so for the project that we have today, we're going to use 2 of these, and I have already prepared the other one. So here's where that stitching portion comes in, and I'm going to use my awl and a piece of this heavy cardstock. And so now what I want to do is measure my spots where I want to punch through with my ruler, and instead of trying to do fancy math, I'm just going to work in from the outside 1.5 inches on either side. And I'm just going to put a little tick mark here right in that score. And I'll do the same thing for this side as well. It doesn't matter that they're perfect. It's just trying to keep them well enough in so that the tension from the elastic won't pull through. Now I want to stack these up on top of this heavy piece of chipboard so that I won't accidentally punch through onto my work surface. And here's my awl. I have to say, pretty much every time I get this out, I stab myself with it. So make sure that you are being very careful because this is so sharp. Now what I want to do is punch through that hole you see there. And I'm just going to put pressure on that and bring my paper up. So I have got my hand underneath and I'm pulling up and I'm going to shift it all the way to where the top of the awl is because that is a little bit wider and I need that space so that I can fit my elastic through. So do that same thing for here. Pushing that all the way up. Don't forget to put your cap back on so that you're not injured. Now I would just come in, you know, and erase that pencil tick. Or you could maybe swap out the orientation so that you're not going to see that. Now what you want to do is use some kind of elastic or possibly some baker's twine, and you want to run that through. And so this would be very similar to a traveler notebook where you are going to hide your knot on the inside. So work that elastic through. You see that went through very easily. And because this does fray just a bit, I'm going to cut the end off so that we got a sharp new edge. And then I'll run it back through on this side. And then you can decide the amount that you need to tie yourself a knot and cut off the excess. You could easily use some of the fabric coated twine that you would use to make jewelry, something like that, if you already have it on hand. And so then I would maybe center this and then just put a nice little square knot in there because it's got that fabric coating, it is not going to pull out. But you do want to get this nice and taut so that you've got a good strong knot there. And then you can come in and remove the excess. And you're hiding that knot on the inside of your book, so it's not going to be as visible. Now, when you fold this over, because you have a similar size inside as outside, it is going to show a little bit. It won't probably pick up on camera that much, but you will have to decide if that bothers you enough to make separate measurements for each layer, or you're just going to let it be what it is and then work with that and then have that a little bit showing. And that is what I'm going to decide to do because I do not want to do all that extra math. So once we've got this base created, I want to come in and add a sturdy cover, of course, because we want it to be a little more bulky, a little more substantial. And if we put a sturdy cover, that's going to also make these pockets a little more sturdy as well. So I've got my cardstock here, and initially I plan to wrap my cardstock around the front and the back page, kind of capture that in between those layers. And I found that even with adjusting my measurements, that was a little tricky. I did make a sample, as I like to do off camera, so that if something were to need to be adjusted, I can do that off camera. But you see, it did not work too well because of the amount of bulk created inside where we have it sewn together. So I'm just going to put my cover on the outside of each back and front, and then we'll add our pattern paper from there. So one thing to consider for that cover is that part of this is curving around. And so you don't want your cover to go all the way to the edge. And so this is going to wind up to be a finished book of 6 1/8 by 4.5. And so you don't want that to be 4.5 wide, because then the gap in the back is going to create a problem. So I am going to use some 110-pound cardstock. It's very, very sturdy. And I have this cut to be 6 1/8 by 8 3/4 and scored at 4 3/8. Now, when I made this one, I was intending to wrap it around, but you don't need to use double-sided tape on both sides as I did. You just want to make sure to use your 2-glue combo and get that folded over. So now you want to add another layer of your double-sided adhesive here, and then pull that backing off. More of our Tombow. And I want to position this so that that nice, clean, finished scored edge is along the outside here. And so this is going to be perfect for making our pocket more sturdy and also giving us a lot more bulkiness to that cover. And you see how this is not going to come all the way over, and that's what we want, because we don't want to have trouble with this trying to wrap around. So you see now we have very thick, sturdy cover with our pockets here as well. Let's do the same for the back, keeping the scored side at the top of that pocket. That double-sided adhesive will hold it in place while our glue sets up. So we can continue to work along now, and you see how much nice added bulk that added, and it's quite sturdy. So let's work on the inside first. And so we're gonna have 3 sets of 2 pages inside. Want to add a full-size pattern for each set of pages and a pocket for 2 of our sets of pages. So I have my pattern paper cut here to be 6 by 4 3/8. And I'm going to put this with a border of that paper bag showing around. One of the ways we have reduced some of the bulk and lessened the amount of wedge that we get is to skip the colorful cardstock layer. And so we do not have a border, but you see how nicely that fills that space. And then for the next side, I have a pocket page planned. And so I want to just demonstrate here with this piece of scrap. And I'll bring in my scoreboard one more time for this. It's going to be 6 inches high by 6 3/8 of an inch wide. And I'm going to score it depending on where my pocket would be, either at 2 or 4 3/8. I want my pocket to be on the right hand side here, so I have done that, and then it will fold over, and this will be the same measurement as our full-size pattern page. So now what you want to do is come in with your Tombow, add a little here, and then you want to hold that in place while that glue sets up so that you have a very nice, good contact. And so I'll switch now to my pattern paper. You see I have already done that process, and this is well glued, and I have a nice pocket here. And then I do want to use my 2-glue combo for this side because it's a pocket page and it will hold a little bit more weight once you add your inserts. I'll do that same step of positioning it here so that I have the nice border of my book base. this pocket page is also going to help create extra sturdiness for the set of pockets that are on the inside. So you see now we've got our front cover, our first set of pages, and then for the center set of pages, I'm going to put just a pattern paper page. And this is going to give us an opportunity for some bigger pictures and reduce a little bit of that bulk. We're going to get a wedge no matter what we do, but we can minimize that just a bit by adding fewer layers on some of the pages. And so this is just going right down the same way we did for our first set of pages. What a fun way to use up a holiday collection. I think I can maybe put some thought into how we can add more pages without increasing that wedge shape too much. And I think that might be fun for our halfway to Halloween project coming up. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. That might be something we can do. It's going to be halfway to Halloween winds up to be May 10th, so I'll have to look at our post schedule to see what will be the closest date there. So now we're going to do that same process for the last set of pages. We've got my pattern paper here. These little laundry lines with the swimming trunks is so cute, and the bathing suits and flip-flops. This would be such a perfect way to capture a summer trip. If you have some memories that you want to preserve for that. And I do have my last pocket page here created with the same technique and measurements as the previous ones. And this will help to increase the sturdiness of that pocket on the end of the page. Okay, so now we have the inside finished. I want to put a pattern on the back, and so I'm just going to pick this fairly neutral one, and I've got some layering planned for the front that will have this included, but I do want to just finish this back now while we don't have too many layers going on the front. And so of course I do want to incorporate a ribbon closure, so I'll just add this piece of double-sided tape. I'm just pulling off enough so that I can tie a generous size bow. Now I can work more on that cover. So I do have that same pattern for the front. That just gives it a nice consistent look. And of course I am just trying to get use out of that paper, and this one was ideally sized so that I could use up this sheet that was 12 inches long but not quite as wide. Now for this book itself, I did wind up to use 2 full 12 by 12 sheets and then 2 half sizes, so pretty much 3 sheets of the 12 by 12 paper, and then as many of the layering that you want to add or some of the cutter parts to use for inserts. I do have a layering pattern to include, and so I'm just going to put that right along the edge here. And then I also have one of those cut apart sheets that I mentioned had some tags for the inserts as well as a focal image for the cover. And so I just cut this with a rectangle die that had a curved edge and then also a stitching detail. I cut an additional piece of 110-pound cardstock so that I could adhere that and make this more sturdy. And then I did add my dimensional foam tape so that I could bring some depth in here. I've also put an eyelet in and some twine. I'm going to position this a little bit higher than middle and more to the right so that I can make room for my flower arrangement. And so I just have some of those lotus flowers from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and I wound up taking out the stamens that were already existing because I didn't think that they matched my project as well. And I also flipped them over upside down, and I think this kind of looks a little bit like a tropical flower with that two-tone on top. And so I did change out those stamens as I mentioned. I've got some die cut foliage netting and loopy twine bows. And you see how this is just going to kind of anchor the bottom corner. And so I'm going to add that with some hot glue. And I'll just position that so that we're not covering up any of that wording on our image. Now I do have some of the inserts cut apart here, and I can go ahead and choose as many as I like for those pocket pages. So let's put 3 in each one. I think that would be nice. And these could be used to put pictures on the back and then incorporate those into your pockets. So you've got that one. Remember, this is just a 2-page spread without a pocket. And then this one also will have 3 of those cut apart inserts. What a good way to get through those pages of cut aparts. And I also have some inserts created for the ends here so that we can get use out of that. So we do have a little bit of a wedge going on, but it's not too bad at the moment. I think you're just going to have to embrace that wedge if you want to make this style of album, and I think it's fine. This is just kind of a event sort of folio. You're just going to take one trip and get all your pictures in there. So I think that would be perfect. And I also think this would be a really nice gift if you are sharing your memories with someone else. You can kind of create a fun little way for them to enjoy your pictures along with the memories that you want to include. So we do need to have some inserts for the ends of these bags. And remember, we have 4 total because we used 2 bags. So we're going to need 4 inserts for this as well. And I was able to get 2 pages with a pocket and then 2 of the inserts for the ends out of each sheet. And so I think that is a very good frugal use of our paper. So let's bring our book back in. And then I think it's nice to kind of alternate through those patterns so that you get a lot of nice details showing. So let's put this one here. And then this one here. There will be some additional room in these pockets for other flat keepsakes and mementos. But remember, the more you put in, the bigger that wedge is going to wind up to be. So I think you can just put in as little or as much as you like. We have the last one here. Oh, let's flip that so that we get them alternating. The reason I have a gap there is so that we can tie our bow and not wind up causing these tabs to get folded over. So let's just go ahead and close that up now. Can remove the excess ribbon at an angle so that it won't fray. I want to include my favorite finishing detail. So I've just got this little turtle. I think it kind of looks like a sea turtle, and I'll put this here at the top. I'm adding that with string. I'm going to add that to our book with some hot glue. We don't have sea turtles here where we live, but we do have snapping turtles, and they get in the road and you have to save them even if they do want to snap your fingers off so that nobody runs them over with their car. Okay, we'll just go and top those cut strings with this button. And then last but not least, put some sequins on. This is not a necessary step, but I do like the extra detail and a little bit of sparkle. So I'll put one up on top of the raised section and then 2 down on to the base. And that's going to be it for our project for today. I sure do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Check in the description for links. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day. And I thank you so much for watching. Bye.